Hi, I'm James with British Customs. Today we're going to show you how to remove your ABS brake line and install our ABS brake line kit on this 2024 Speed Twin 1200. So first thing we want to do is remove our seat. I'm going to start removing the tank by removing this bolt first. So you got a 10mm nut here. Use a socket on that and 8mm wrench on the other side. So one thing you want to do is just place a rag up here just to protect the paint, so when you lift it up, in case it hits the triple clamp up there, you don't want to scratch it. And I just like to have another one back here. When you slide it off, you can lay it on top of there. I'm going to take a block of wood, like 6 to 8 inches. Put it up here. Make sure it's good and stable. The tank's not going to fall down on you. So we want to start by removing the fuel line. You need to move this little clip, goes back, and then you have a piece here you got to squeeze. There's another piece on the other side. You can do it by hand, but it helps if you have a tool like this that I can get on both sides and squeeze it, because I can't get my hand back there too easily. So you just kind of squeeze them in a little bit there. You don't have to squeeze too hard. It just unlocks it. So I put a rag here just to catch any fuel that drips out of there. It can be a little tight sometimes. Once it starts coming up, you can remove that out of the way and just lift it up. That's it. There. Now we need to unplug these two plugs here. So it's these two white plugs right there. You can lift them up and you can get them closer to you. You see a little piece right here needs to be lifted up, and then you can pull it off. Same thing on this one here. So now last we have this hose that's attached to the tank here. You can detach it there. I like to just take it off the tank from the front and leave the whole hose on the back on the bike. There's little tabs under here that need to be bent out just a little bit. Let's pull the hose off. Another one there. That's that. So now just remember, before removing the tank, you want to have somewhere to put the tank. Much easier to do this with a place to put it. You don't want to be sitting there holding a tank in your hand and not having anywhere to put it. I like to put a rag back here so when I scoot it back, I don't scratch anything on here. Pull that wood out. And especially if you got a full tank, like this one is full, I wouldn't want to be holding a full tank and nowhere to put it. So just start pulling it back, and you want to lift up in the front here as you're pulling it back. Okay. So as you can see, this bike's been going up and down a lot, so it's a lot easier to do this job on the lift. But you know, the pros and cons. You got to keep raising the lift up and down. If you do it on the ground, then you got to work on your knees. So whichever works best for you, I guess, is good. So now we're going to remove this plastic guide here. You got a T30. So now we just want to remove this piece out of here. And we got another piece right there that we want to take off. Again, it's T30. There. Another thing you want to be aware of, you got a lot of stuff that's going to be coming off, nuts and bolts wise, so you want to take them off in an organized fashion so you know where they go back. So next thing we want to do is we're going to flush the brake fluid out of the whole system. Get it out of the ABS system. You need to protect the bike from this brake fluid because it's very corrosive. It'll destroy paint and finishes. So you want to be super careful with it. Get a rag underneath there in case anything spills. If you do get it on any paint or anything, you need to flush it down with water for a few minutes. Make sure it all neutralizes. Because one thing, if you just wipe it off, it will keep eating. You'll never be able to get it out of the paint. It'll just keep on going through. So with your Phillips head screwdriver, pull that lid off. Make sure you got all your parts there. And then we're going to get this far away from the bike. So next we want to flush the fluid out of here. You need to remove this little rubber cap here. Just pull that off for now. And the only real way to do this on an ABS system is with a vacuum bleeder. I mean, you could do it with two people just pumping it through. It'll take a long time, and this is really the best way to do it. It's not a very expensive tool, so I would recommend just going and buying one or have this done at a shop. So you want to attach that hose right on there. Start the vacuum going. So our 8mm wrench is going to loosen see the fluid coming through there. Now the reservoir is empty. Just want to crack this open. Use our 11mm wrench. Just give it a quick crack. We're going to take the brake line off from here, so we want to make sure that this has as little bit of fluid as we can get. That's good enough. Just close that up. Shut that off. So now we just want to get our 8mm. Close the bleeder valve here. Before you take this off, you want to turn this back on so you're not dripping a bunch of fluid out of it. Now we're going to go to the other side and just bleed that real quick. Put that on. Get the wrong wrench. The 8mm. Crack that open. You're not going to get much out of this side. Close that off. That's it. So one thing I like to do is just put a paper towel inside the reservoir and put the cap back on. Keep that nice and dry. Screw it down loosely. So next you want to use your 5mm Allen. You take this screw out. Now with a 12mm socket, you get these two. Pull that out of the way. Now with a small flat blade screwdriver or a pick or something, just pull that plug out. So now we want to remove the right side cover. Just pulls off out of these rubber grommets there. So next you want to take a 10mm wrench and remove your negative battery cable. Always remove your negative cable first if you're doing your battery. We only need to remove the negative. We don't need to remove the positive on this. And I like to put the screw back in there so that we don't have to worry about that nut falling out of the battery. Do that, and then we just want to tuck that over here so it can't end up touching the negative side of the battery. So next we want to just pull the solenoid out of the way. If you unplug it here, and we can get to that screw there using our T20. Okay, then we got another one there and another one there, both T20s. Okay, that's going to free things up for the brake line. So now we're going to remove the sprocket cover using an 8mm socket. So now we can remove this cap here. So now we're going to move on to removing the rear wheel. You need to support the bike with a jack. Make sure your front wheel is secure in a wheel chock or something when you do this, because you're going to be messing around on the bike a bit and you don't want to shake it off, just off of the flat jack like that. You want to just raise it up just enough that you're still touching the ground, but the weight is off of it, and then we can get it out of there. First, we want to remove the chain guard. These are 5mm Allen. Got 2 screws. Now we want to remove the axle nut. It's a 27mm socket. Now we want to remove the rear axle. Just use a little rubber mallet, pop it right through. Catch your adjuster there, put it down, pull the axle from the other side. So you want to push the wheel forward, get some slack in the chain so you can pull it off of the sprocket. Just hang it off to the side there. So you want to support your caliper so it doesn't just fall down. Start pulling the wheel out. Now we can just let that hang like that. Now it may be necessary to raise the bike up so you can get the wheel past your license plate. Then we're going to put the brake caliper back on here temporarily. Secure it with the axle. So now we're going to remove the mufflers. We'll start with this nut here. It's 12mm. What you want to do is once it starts loosening, you want to put pressure down on the foot peg to keep the bolt from spinning. Now we can loosen this clamp here. It's 10mm. Now you can just turn this in a little bit and work it off of the pipe. Do the same on the other side. So remove this nut, 12mm. Put pressure on the foot peg. Loosen this clamp, 10mm. Turn it in and work it off. So now we're going to remove the ABS unit cover. Got 3 screws there, 5mm Allen. It's important that you don't lose these top hat spacers. We're going to remove the carbon canister. Got 2 screws right there. It's a 3mm Allen. And you just want to disconnect these 2 hoses back here. Pull it this way. Let's pull it right out. Now we just want to remove the brake line from this little guide here. Now you can remove the axle. Make sure you're holding the caliper. Now we can slide the caliper down and just lay it down on something soft. So now we want to use our 24mm socket. So loosen that nut and then hold your 19mm socket on the other side at the same time. So now we're going to tap the swing arm pivot bolt out through the other side. You got a little washer in there, so you want to catch that if it didn't come out with the nut. Now we can go on the other side and pull it out. So now we want to pull the swing arm out, the pivot bolt out. There's a little washer in there, so make sure that comes with it. We're going to go reinstall this from the other side. It's important that you do this because if you try to just take the adjuster nut out of there, the whole swing arm is going to end up going crooked and it's going to get even tighter and you won't be able to pull it out. So this will keep it nice and straight as you take that out. So next we need to back off the swing arm adjuster. So you can see in there, it's a like tube with 2 little slots on there. That's what this special tool is for. Gets in there and you can just back it up. That's it. So next we want to remove our lower shock bolts. Start with the right side using a 14mm socket on the inside, 14mm wrench on the outside. You have a little spacer in there. You don't want to lose that. Pull the shock up. Just push that spacer out. So I'm going to put the bolt and the spacer with the nut through here. Now we can hang our chain on that. Now we'll take off this side. 14mm wrench, socket. Again, we don't want to lose that spacer. You want to hold this swing arm up so that it doesn't just drop down on your ABS unit. You can pull the shock out of there and lower it nice and easy. You can throw that bolt through there with the spacer intact so that way we don't lose the spacer. So now we want to tape up the top of the swing arm so that when we pull it out, it doesn't get all scratched up from the chain. So I'm just going to clean it off and make sure the tape sticks. Just need some painter's tape, or whatever tape you have around. Painter's tape is easier to clean up later on. If you use duct tape, it's going to be a little messy. So now, while you're holding the swing arm, keep it from falling, we can pull out the pivot bolt. So you got to kind of bring it up on an angle like that to get it to start coming out. So now we're ready to remove the brake line. It won't look like this when you open yours up. I just put orange tape on there so you can see in the video that it's nice and clear. This is the one that we're taking off. That white paint won't be on it. I put that on there just so you can see it in the video better. Use your 12mm wrench. Loosen that up. And we're gonna still get some brake fluid out of here, so you wanna be prepared with a rag to wipe any up. See, here it comes. Pull that out. I don't like to use power tools on these because you spin them out too fast and then you get .4 brake fluid flying across the room. So now you can lift this up. You just wrap it in a rag, get like a plastic bag like this. And we can stick it in there and make sure the fluid's not dripping all over the bike. I'll just throw a cable tie around that. So now we want to get this one out. Before I do that, I want to take these straps off of here. Get them out of the way. We can pull the wires out of the way. So now with our 12mm, I'm going to crack this. Make sure you have a rag here to catch any brake fluid that starts dripping out. You can just put the rag between the wires. That. Wrap this up. Get it in the bag. I'm just going to put this rag back up here just in case we get any drips. I'll throw a little piece of tape around there, keep it from falling. There we go. Okay, so this is the line that we're going to be removing here. I want to pop this thing out here just to free it up a little bit as we're pulling through. It'll give us a little room. So next thing we want to do is we're going to get the brake line out of this wire guide here, and we want to pull it through to the other side of the bike. Now, another option you have here is you could just cut this brake line out if you don't want to save it. You're not worried about that. And what I can say about that is we have not figured out a way to get this thing off without destroying it anyway. It's going to be all twisted up. So it's not that big a deal to do it that way, except you'll have brake fluid dripping out wherever you cut it. So it's something to think about. So here's our brake line that we're removing. We got this little clip that's on the clutch cable and the brake line. So we can pull that out of here. can start pulling the brake line this way. It's a little bit tight on the other side, getting through there, but especially with the bag on it. Okay. So now we're going to pull the line up this way. You got little clips over here holding it in, so you can undo those. Okay. Now, pull this way. Okay. So, looks like we're managing to do it without mangling it up too bad. But I don't imagine we'd ever put it back on the bike, though. So. Okay, that's it. You know, if you want to change your bars and run a longer line, that's what you got to get this out of here. And then we have our kit that consists of 2 lines, or 1 line on the ABS Brakeline kit, which will terminate over here. And now you can add whatever length handlebar brake line you need, and they'll both screw together. And then if you ever wanted to change your brake lines in the future, you could just change out the top line. You don't have to go through taking your whole swing arm apart and everything to get this thing out of there, because this will be terminated right underneath the gas tank. So I'm going to take the banjo end of our ABS kit brake line and slide it through there. Get it right about to the ABS unit, and then we want to slide it into this little clamp here just to hold it in place. So now before you put the bolt in, you want to make sure that this silver washer here is not in there anymore. Make sure there's nothing in there. You're going to take the fat washer from the kit. It's obvious which one is the fat one when you compare the two. That one has to go on the bottom. Otherwise, this is not going to sit flat on there and it will definitely leak. Put the skinny one on the bolt. Put the bolt through the banjo. Get the thread started. Okay, and now, while it's loose, we want to just start getting everything routed the way it's got to go. Make sure it's in its pocket there, because if it's crossing over, it's not going to sit flat. Okay, now with our 12mm wrench, we can tighten this up. So you just want to make sure that this piece here is like sitting in the pocket that it belongs in. If it's too far over here, it's not going to seat down flat. It needs to get into that pocket there, be able to move freely. A 12mm wrench. Now tighten it up. Again, not something you want to use power tools on, because if you're starting to cross the thread, you want to know that you're doing it. It should go in nice and easy. So now we can final torque this to 25 Newton meters. So now that we've got it tight down there, we can just pop it back out of this, so that we can route it up through here. We can pop it back in there. Okay. So now we can install our AN adapter. Got a 7/16 on this end and 16 millimeter on the big end. Okay. Tighten them up. Now this is where your handlebar line, whatever kit you buy, whatever brake line comes in there, is going to attach over here. So for the sake of the video, we're going to go ahead and put the rest of it back together, but if you're putting your handlebars on, you may want to do those now, attach this line, go through the whole brake bleed procedure to make sure you don't have any leaks down at the bottom. But we're not putting the handlebar kit on right now, so we're going to go back ahead and put all the swing arm and everything back together from here. Which you could do it at the end, but if you have leaks there, you may end up having to take it all apart again to fix the leak. So I'm just going to pop that piece back in there, hold that down. You could throw a cable tie or something here just to keep that in place. So this doesn't need to be made really tight. You actually want to keep it loose. We're just putting that there to keep it from standing up on us. So now we can put our swing arm back in. Make sure you have the chain running through there to come in on a bit of an angle. Again, see why we want to tape that up, because it would be scratching the heck out of it. Get that in there. Put that back there. So now from the right side, we want to slide our pivot bolt in. So now we're ready to put the shock bolts back on. Remember, you got this little spacer here. Slide that in, get the bolt in, put the spacer back in, put the nut on, get the other one on, and then we'll torque them both down. So we're going to snug these up, 14 millimeter wrench, 14 millimeter socket. And we'll torque them down to 48 Newton meters. So now we want to tighten up our adjuster, so push that in a little bit using our specialty tool. Just Go nice until it just snugs up there. Now we're going to torque it down to 6 Newton meters. Which is not very tight at all. So now we can pull this out and put it in from the other side. So now we slide the pivot back through this way. So now we can install the washer, and then the nut. So while holding the pivot bolt with a 19mm socket, use our 24mm, tighten up the nut, and then we're going to final torque it to 110 Newton meters. We can install the rubber plug on there, put the plastic cap on here. So now we want to get our brake line and the speed sensor into the guide here. Put the speed sensor line in first, and then the brake line will hold that in place. Okay. And now we can just throw the axle in there to support the brake caliper for now. And we'll install our ABS cover. And we're going to install the ABS cover. These are the 3 bolts with the top hat spacers. Make sure you have them. Otherwise, the bolt is going to go right through the hole. It's not going to hold anything on. Tighten that up with your 5mm Allen. Doesn't have to be insane tight. It's only a real lightweight piece of plastic. So whenever I'm doing a job like this, installing an ABS brake line, you have to remove everything, swing arm, the brake line, all that stuff. You got lots of bolts that end up coming off the bike. And the best way I found to keep them organized is by using one of these bolster kits. You got all different size holes in them. They make other ones that are bigger. They make other ones that are smaller. Totally universal. Doesn't matter what you're working on. They're really good to, you can keep them in the patterns that you need to keep them in if you want. They keep everything organized so you don't lose anything. So now we're going to install the carbon canister with the 2 hoses. You got a small one and a big one. Go into the small one and the big one there. And this one here is going to insert into that grommet there. That's what keeps it aligned, and then we'll put the 2 screws there. And go to the other side. Difficult to do from that angle. Okay. Now we can install our screws using our 3mm Allen. That one right there. It's just hand tight. Just going into plastic here. So next we're going to install the mufflers. Before I do that, I want to get the tape off the swing arm. I'm going to slide the muffler on, get our foot peg, make sure you get your pin aligned with the hole. Okay. The nut on the back. Using our 12mm, put a little pressure on the foot peg. Again, make sure that pin is in there. Okay. And we'll torque this down to 24 Newton meters. And we'll tighten up this clamp, a 10mm socket. I'm going to final torque it to 10 Newton meters. Now do the same thing on the other side. I'll slide this one on. Put the foot peg in. Make sure the pin is aligned. Nut. Make sure your pin's aligned, keeping pressure on there. 12mm socket. Tighten that up. Torque it down to 24 Newton meters. With our 10mm socket, tighten the clamp up. And we'll final torque it. 10 Newton meters. So now, ready to put the rear wheel on. So we'll slide the axle out. So just slide it in there. You want to make sure your rotor falls between your brake pads. Go far enough forward that we can get the chain back on. Now we can pull it back. Slide the axle through. Get this adjuster on. The washer, and the nut. So tighten that nut up, 27 millimeter. And we're going to final torque it to 110 Newton meters. Now we can install chain guard using our 5 millimeter Allen. Another one in the back. It's just hand tight. So now we can put this bracket back on. Using our T20. Again, this is just hand tight, going into plastic. Don't forget to plug this back in. Slide that into place. Okay. Now we can install the side cover. Gotta come up with this one first. Now we're ready to install the sprocket cover. Just Just get each bolt started first. It's an 8mm socket. It's just hand tight. So now we can put our shifter back on. If you notice, you got a little point right there and a point right there. They need to line up. Oh, one tooth off. There you go. So those are lined up. Get these in here. We want to put a little blue Loctite on the bolts. Okay. A 12mm socket. We'll final torque these to 25 Newton meters. Okay. Then we just want to get this screw in here. Using our 5mm Allen. It's good snug hand tight. All right, so that's it for the ABS Brakeline install. And now you're ready to install a set of hour bars of your choice or any other bar you're working with that utilizes a Brakeline with an AN3 fitting. That can go back here. If you're doing custom bars and you order a custom line, you can install it right to that. As long as it's an AN3, that's what we got there. But like I said, really you want to install the bars before you put the swing arm all back together and bleed the brakes then, so you can just make sure nothing's leaking back there, would be the optimum way to do it. If you feel really confident, go ahead, put it all back together and try your luck, okay? And that's it, man. Thanks for watching.